I need to ask you something. What was the biggest financial decision you've ever made? For most people, the answer is the same: a home. And that makes sense. Buying a home is tangible proof of years of hard work, a success you can actually touch. But here's what I want you to think about. Before you made that decision, how much did you actually know? You got approved by the bank, you signed the papers, you got the keys, and then life went on. For some people, months after that signature, sometimes years later, a quiet realization creeps in. They see a number, they run a calculation, or they compare their situation to a friend's, and something becomes clear. If only I had known this before. Today, we're going to finish that sentence. Picture two families, both living in the same city, both earning the same income, both making the biggest decision of their lives. The first family buys a home, a $350,000 house, 25% down, 35-year mortgage, monthly payment around $1,500. Sounds reasonable. The second family rents, $1,200 a month in rent. The remaining $200 goes into investments every single month. Small, but consistent. 10 years later, who's in a better position? Most people immediately say the ones who bought, because they have a home, they have an asset, it appreciated in value. But when you actually run the numbers, the answer isn't that clear. And that lack of clarity holds the darkest secret of home buying. Let me ask you something. When you bought your home, did you only calculate the monthly payment? Most people say yes. And that is the very first mistake, because the real cost of a home never starts with the monthly payment. It starts before that. Title fees, property taxes, insurance, deposits, moving costs, first month renovations, small repairs throughout the first year. And that's just the beginning. What comes after? The roof starts leaking, the boiler breaks down, the bathroom needs renovating, the walls need painting. Homeowners know this reality very well, but nobody asked them about it before they bought. There's a widely accepted rule in the industry. Every year, you'll spend between 1% and 2% of your home's value on maintenance and repairs. For a $300,000 home, that's $3,000 to $6,000 a year. Over 10 years, $30,000 to $60,000 just to keep the house standing. Did you factor that into your mortgage calculation? Part 4. The dark side of your mortgage. 6:30 to 9. I'm going to tell you something most bankers won't say out loud. When you take out a 30-year mortgage, you're actually buying the house twice. This isn't an exaggeration. Here's how the numbers work. A $350,000 home, 20% down. That means $280,000 in mortgage. 30 years at 7% interest. By the end of those 30 years, the total amount you've paid is roughly $672,000. Meaning for a $280,000 loan, you paid $392,000 in interest alone. Did the home increase in value over that time? Probably yes. But did you actually benefit from that increase? Or when you subtract the interest payments, the maintenance costs, and the investment opportunities you missed, does a very different picture emerge? Nobody asked you these questions when you were buying that home, because the answers make a lot of people stop and think twice. Part 5. The opportunity cost. 9 to 11. Now we get to the most uncomfortable part. Opportunity cost. Have you ever heard this term before? Simply put, it means this. When you spend money on one thing, you lose the opportunity to spend that money on something else. And because that loss is invisible, most people never account for it. Think about it this way. You paid $70,000 as a down payment. What if that $70,000 had been sitting in an index fund for 20 years? Earning an average return of 8%, it would have grown to roughly $326,000. Does knowing that make buying a home the wrong decision? Of course not. But not knowing it means signing without seeing the full picture. And the ones who sign without seeing usually end up paying the heaviest price. But my home is gaining value. How many times have you heard that? A lot, I'd guess, because it's presented as the undeniable advantage of owning a home. But behind that sentence is a truth nobody says out loud. Yes, homes appreciate in value. Over the long term, on average, their nominal value goes up. But what's left when you adjust for inflation? Economist Robert Shiller studied over a century of housing prices, and what he found was this. The real inflation-adjusted return on housing over the long term is roughly between 0 and 1% per year. 0 to 1%. The historical average real return of the stock market is 7%. Has any real estate agent ever told you that? No, because their job is to sell homes. Part 7. The misunderstood side of renting. 1.